Hi, this is Kathy from Gadget Stop 321, and in today's video, I'll be taking a look at my two currently inked pens, one that I'm just finishing up that will get cleaned out after this video, one that I just inked up today. And this pen is not currently inked, but I'm going to dip test it in an ink that I'm considering using in it in the future. I'll do a writing sample on some Tomoe River paper and then maybe talk a little bit about each pen at the end. First, I'll be writing with my Leonardo Momento Zero in the jade finish. I've been writing with it for a few weeks now using Sailor Tokiwa-matsu. I replaced the stock extra fine nib that came with this pen with a Yovo extra fine flex nib. I mentioned in a previous video that I had some minor trouble with skipping. Oddly enough, what usually happens with an ink and pen combination that tends to skip is that it will get worse as time goes on, but this one got better. Now, it didn't completely go away, but the amount of skipping I experienced decreased. What I think might have happened, now I've had trouble with this ink skipping in other pens as well that I haven't made this mistake with, but I think this was a mistake I made. When I inked it up, I often ink up my pens using an ink syringe and just fill up the converter and then put it in the pen, and I'll shake it a little bit and let it, or even prime the feed, twist the plunger down and prime the feed. But what I did this time, and I've done this before with other pens and inks and not had the same trouble, but dip the pen in the ink to get started writing quicker. Well, I did that here, but what I think happened was between the ink that was in the feed where I dipped it and the ink from the converter, maybe there was air bubbles in between the two, and that has caused the problem with skipping. I'm not sure. But I do know that this ink does dry out in the feed if you take long pauses. Well, that didn't dry out there. Maybe it doesn't dry out as quickly once the ink becomes more saturated. That seems kind of counterintuitive, but whatever. I'm almost out of ink. The only ink right now is what is in the feed, and I'm sure it's about to run out soon. So when I get done with this video, I'm going to clean this pen out. Now, the reason I don't like to dip this pen in the ink is this material is kind of a little clear, a little translucent, and I don't want to get ink between like the nib collar and the material. You'll be able to see it through there. It's just, it wouldn't hurt the pen if that happened, but it's just my own personal preference. But I have loved this. I'm kind of rambling, but I just love the size of this pen. I don't usually post it. I could post it if I wanted to make sure I didn't misplace my cap, but usually this is just the perfect size, and I love this shape of this section. This is one of my favorite pens. When I write with this pen, I'm not looking forward to the next pen. I'm enjoying every minute of writing with this pen. And I just wanted to mention this flexi nib. I'm not one who does much flex writing, but the amount of bounce that I get with this nib makes it feel like I'm writing with a gold nib. I I just really like this pen, ink, nib, and paper combination. Next, I'll be writing with my new Pilot Custom 74. I've got it inked up with one of my favorite inks of all time, Colorverse Dark Energy. This pen has my favorite nib on it, the number 5 size 14 karat fine nib. You can see, I mention this all the time with these 14 karat Pilot nibs. It's got the dry upstroke, and I notice to the right feels a little bit drier than to the left. This nib doesn't feel scratchy in any direction. The tines are not misaligned. It feels pretty much the same in each direction. Now, the upstroke does feel a little bit drier than the others, but I like the character that that dry upstroke gives my writing. You can kind of see it in the loop-de-loop. It's a little, you get some line variation, basically. I didn't try reverse writing with the Leonardo Momento Zero. I'll go back and do that, but at least with this ink and this pen, reverse writing, oh, I can't even see what I'm writing. I lost my place. Reverse. No, it's too dry, and that's fine with me. This Pilot fine nib is finer than this Yovo extra fine nib, especially the flex nib. It's a little bit juicier than the regular extra fine nib, but even the regular extra fine, this Pilot fine nib is finer than that. I don't think I would ever have a need for a nib finer than this. This is perfect for me. Let me go back real quick and see what the reverse writing looks like here. I've actually had to use reverse writing with this nib before. Or not this one, with the regular extra fine nib. Now, this one's pretty dry too. I don't know if it's the ink or the nib is just drier. I haven't really had to reverse write with this nib. Now, the original extra fine nib that came with it, I did have to do some reverse writing. When I first got it, the regular writing was really scratchy. I had to do some work on it, but the reverse writing was nice. But I'm not sure about this flex nib. But I've had no reason to use reverse writing with it. But this Custom 74 is going to be my singular inked up fountain pen. I've accepted the fact that one fountain pen inked up at a time is perfect for me. More than that, and it's just too many pens at one time. Too much ink to get through. It seems like I never finish the pen. So one at a time is perfect. And I'm really looking forward to writing with this. I love this ink and this fine nib. Next, I'm going to dip test my Parker Premier. This has been kind of a grail pen for me for a while. I'm not going to talk too much about it today. I'm just going to dip it in an ink. Let's see, Diamine Writer's Blood. I'm considering inking this pen up with Writer's Blood at some point in the future, and I just want to see kind of how it writes. This has a medium nib. It's 18 karat. Isn't that beautiful? I'm sure this is ruthenium plated. And it did not come with a converter or a box or anything. I bought it used on eBay. So I ordered a converter. I ordered it from Amazon. And when it came in, look at this. It is duck, man. There's no lubrication in there. So when I sold my Twisby this summer, I didn't think, hey, I don't have any silicone grease now. So I had to ask my sister for a bottle of hers. She's got several Twisbys, so she didn't mind sharing one of the bottles. And here's how I grease up a piston or even like an ink syringe. They get kind of sticky because, the lubrication gets washed away as you use them. So I don't know if you can see it, but you just get the tip of a toothpick wet with some lubrication. And, well, I don't know. I don't want to mess with this. I don't know if you can actually take it apart. And then just kind of wipe that around. Let's see if that actually touched the sides. Oh, much better. All right. Now, I'm not going to be drawing ink up. I'm just going to dip it in some ink. But even if I were going to be filling up the converter, I don't think I would dip this in the ink. I would use an ink syringe to fill it up because of these grooves. They're kind of deep. They're kind of sharp. I don't think a dry tissue would actually get all that out. You might have to use a damp tissue or damp paper towel to make sure you had all the ink out of there. So when I do ink this up for real, I'm going to use an ink syringe to fill the converter. But for now, I'm just going to dip. There's no breather hole on this nib. I'll just dip it maybe barely up to the shoulders in my writer's blood. Not the best bottle to be doing this in. I probably should have put some in an ink sample vial so I could see how far I was dipping it, but we'll see how this goes. Let's see if you can see the ink getting sucked up into the nib. Well, it happens so fast. That ink coats the nib, but then you can see it getting sucked down into the nib slit. Okay, I'm still going to have to wipe the section off because this is a narrow opening, and I probably bumped the sides, but I don't really have to worry about ink being down in the grooves. This is a snap cap. I'll talk more about the details of the pen when I do a full review. A little bit of a hard start there. And a little bit of a hard start there on the downstroke. I have that sometimes with my Pilot pens. I didn't see it this time, but a lot of times on my Pilot pens, that first downstroke will skip just a little bit. When I do a full review of this, I'm going to have to do some writing sample comparisons because this almost feels like a broad nib. This is a really nice feeling nib. Where Pilot medium nibs are pretty smooth, they're some of the smoothest, and then like the Sailor and Platinum medium nibs have kind of more of a feedback. This is kind of in between those two. Just a slight hint of chalky feedback. That's nice. I really like that. Let's see what the reverse writing looks like. Now, to me, this feels like a Sailor fine nib, and it looks about like a Sailor fine nib. Quite a bit of feedback. More than chalky, more like you can tell it's a fine nib on the paper, but not scratchy. That's pretty nice. Very nice to have that, have the options of a, I would call that an extra fine to a broad nib. Because this broad medium nib may not be very practical for every writing situation, so that is nice. All right. I've used this ink before in a Kaweco broad nib, and I really liked it. And so that's what made me think it might be suited for this pretty wide medium nib. Okay. If you found this video helpful, please give me a thumbs up. And if you'd like to see more videos like this, please subscribe to my channel.